I slammed the door behind me, the sharp echo bouncing off the sterile hospital walls. My mother's voice followed, cold and venomous, "You don't deserve a dime from Dad." Those words cut deeper than any illness in that room. Betrayed by blood, underestimated, mocked for being the one who stayed while they only showed up for the money. If you're enjoying this, please subscribe and share. Your support keeps the stories coming. Dad was fading fast. And the fight wasn't just against time, it was against my own family. While I spent nights monitoring his oxygen levels, adjusting his blankets, and watching over every breath, Marla and Stellan circled like vultures. I caught them one evening, signatures barely dry on a document that stripped me of any claim, a waiver of inheritance rights. Their plan was to erase me from Dad's life and legacy, to silence the daughter who refused to bend, but I didn't back down. I intercepted those papers before they could be filed, saving every shred of my father's truth. Slowly, the pieces came together. Stellan had already drained Dad's accounts to fund his failing businesses, leaving empty promises where money should have been. And Marla? She used guilt as her weapon, painting me as the villain for demanding honesty and care. Despite their betrayal, I stayed. Every day I was there, checking his heart monitor, making notes for the doctors, keeping his spirits alive with stories from his past. I documented everything, gathering the proof I'd need for the fight ahead. The worst was yet to come. One restless night, I found it, the drawer Dad mentioned, tucked away behind old photo albums and faded letters. Inside lay a trove of memories, his prized watch collection, dusty legal papers, and an envelope addressed to me. My hands trembled as I unfolded the letter. Dad had planned for me, even when he was too weak to speak. A lease agreement for a shop, a deposit for a wedding venue, and words full of hope and trust. I realized then, he had chosen me. Not just as his daughter, but as the guardian of his legacy. The next morning, Marla and Stellan stormed into the hospital room, their faces tight with greed masked as concern. They demanded I sign over everything. But I was ready. I smiled quietly and told them the truth, that Dad had already taken care of it. Their faces drained of color as I revealed the accounts, the lease, and his final wishes. They were left empty-handed, humiliated in front of the hospital staff and nurses who had seen my dedication. For the first time, I wasn't the overlooked daughter, I was the one standing tall, holding the last piece of my father's honor. But the battle for my future was just beginning. Dad's watch glinted under the hospital's harsh fluorescent lights as I carefully lifted it from the drawer. It wasn't just a timepiece, it was a symbol of every moment stolen from me by my own family. Marla's cold gaze was fixed on me, but I didn't flinch. I wrapped the watch in a soft cloth, feeling the weight of years of betrayal and quiet resilience. If you're enjoying this, please subscribe and share. Your support keeps the stories coming. The lease Dad left behind wasn't just a piece of paper, it was a lifeline. Markel and daughter timepieces, the shop he dreamed we'd run together. I could almost hear his steady voice, telling me to keep going, to not let the past define my future. But Marla and Stellan weren't done. At the funeral, where grief should have been shared, they only whispered about money, about how I should sign over everything so they could help me move on. Their hunger for control was as loud as the church organ, drowning out any hope of peace. I stayed silent, but inside, a fire was burning. I had Dad's letter, the lease, and proof of every bank transfer they thought I hadn't noticed. When Marla demanded signatures, I handed over the documents instead, showing everyone the truth behind their smiles and fake tears. Their faces fell. The family I thought I knew was unraveling in front of a crowd of distant relatives and friends who watched as the real story spilled out, of loyalty, theft, and strength. That night, alone in the quiet of Dad's empty room, I held his watch close. I didn't have much money, but I had something far more valuable: his trust, his legacy, and my own promise to build something new from the ruins. The next step was terrifying. Taking the shop from a dream to reality meant facing the world without my family's support, without their lies. But for the first time, I felt ready. This was my fight. My time. Then came the knock on the hospital door that would change everything. Days later, when I opened the door, it wasn't Marla or Stellan. It was Lyndon, the nurse who had been quietly caring for Dad during his final days. His eyes held a mix of sadness and determination, like he understood the battle I was about to fight. He brought me a small, battered box. "He wanted you to have this," Lyndon said softly. Inside were Dad's most personal tools, the ones he used to fix the delicate gears of his watches. The kind of tools you only see in old, trusted hands. That moment felt like a silent passing of a torch. Lyndon didn't say much, but his presence was a shield against the chaos my family had left behind. Together, we started making plans, not just for the shop, but for a life where I could finally breathe without looking over my shoulder. But just as things seemed to settle, Marla showed up at the apartment, her smile brittle and her voice dripping with fake concern. She asked about the shop, about Dad's things, about the money she thought she'd get her hands on. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I showed her the lease and the bank statements, the evidence that Dad had already taken care of everything long before she tried to swoop in. Her face tightened, the warmth disappearing as quickly as it had come. "You don't deserve a dime from Dad," she sneered, but I wasn't listening anymore. I was busy building a future she could never take from me. The next day, at the shop, Lyndon and I cleaned up the old counters, polished the glass cases, and hung Dad's faded Markel and Daughter timepieces sign. Every little step felt like reclaiming not just a business, but my father's love and trust. But as I closed up for the night, a message popped up on my phone, an anonymous tip about something hidden in Dad's old files. It hinted at secrets I never knew about, and a fight far from over.